All right. We go ahead and do Bible AV10, which is up to Exodus 40. But beforehand, I just want to say I took another cold shower today. So I took one yesterday around this time. Took one again about an hour and a half ago, and got the same effect from it. It feels so comfortable. Like, it's so weird, but I'm going to keep doing it because just a little bit of reading I did on it makes a lot of sense. For example, I noticed as soon as I get in and the cold water hits my chest, either the front or the back, it does it equally to both. I feel it tighten, and I have to force myself to breathe harder. So I'm taking in more oxygen that way. And I think part of the reading it said that the blood vessels will pull more oxygen in or something. So because doing that immediate change from normal body temperature to cold shower, that cold water, it activates a survival response, which makes sense. Some of the people I've seen, I guess, are climbing mountains in shorts and barefoot. So it wouldn't surprise me if that somehow increasing the adaptability factor. But I mean, it's just good overall. Like if it's going to help out with extra blood flow and stuff, that's what I need to get my kidneys working again. So for the hypothesis that I had, 2 years ago, that I could potentially turn this around. So we shall see. But until then, I'm just going to keep doing this and try to increase my productivity as best as I can, while not overdoing it, going too extreme. But it's working out pretty well. All right, so to AV10, we'll start chapter 32 of Exodus. Let's back out. 32. All right. Meanwhile, the people saw that Moses was taking a long time coming down from the mountain. So the people gathered around Aaron and said to him, "Get up, make for us a god who will go ahead of us, because we do not know what has happened to this Moses, the man who led us up out of the land of Egypt." At this, Aaron said to them, "Take the gold earrings from the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." So all the people began taking off the gold earrings that were in their ears and bringing them to Aaron. Then he took the gold from them, and he formed it with an engraving tool and made it into a statue of a calf. They began to say, "This is your God, O Israel, who led you up out of the land of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. Then Aaron called out, "There is a festival to Jehovah tomorrow." So they got up early the next day and began offering up burnt offerings and presenting communion sacrifices. After that, the people sat down to eat and drink. Then they got up to have a good time. Jehovah now said to Moses, "Go, descend, because your people, whom you led out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves. They have quickly deviated from the way I commanded them to go. They have made for themselves a statue of a calf, and they keep bowing down to it and sacrificing to it, and saying, 'This is your God, O Israel, who led you up out of the land of Egypt.'" Jehovah went on to say to Moses, "I have seen that this is an obstinate people. So now let me be, and I will exterminate them in my burning anger, and let me make a great nation from you instead." Then Moses appealed to Jehovah his God and said, "Why, O Jehovah, should you turn your burning anger against your people after bringing them out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say, 'He had evil intentions when he led them out. He wanted to kill them in the mountains and exterminate them from the surface of the earth'? Turn from your burning anger and reconsider your decision to bring this calamity on your people. Remember your servants, Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, to whom you swore by yourself and said, 'I will multiply your offspring like the stars of the heavens, and I will give all this land that I have designated to your offspring, so that they may take it as a permanent possession. So Jehovah began to reconsider the calamity that he had spoken of bringing on his people. Moses then turned and went down from the mountain with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand. The tablets were inscribed on both sides. They were written on the front and on the back. The tablets were the workmanship of God, and the writing was the writing of God engraved on the tablets. When Joshua began to hear the noise of the people because of their shouting, he said to Moses, "There is the sound of battle in the camp." But Moses said, "It is not the sound of singing over a victory, and it is not the sound of wailing over a defeat. I hear the sound of another kind of singing." As soon as Moses got near the camp and saw the calf and the dances, his anger began to blaze, and he threw the tablets from his hands and shattered them at the foot of the mountain. He took the calf that they had made, and he burned it with fire and crushed it into powder. Then he scattered it on the water and made the Israelites drink it. And Moses said to Aaron, "What did the people do to you that you have brought a great sin upon them?" Aaron replied, "Do not be enraged, my lord. You well know that the people are inclined to do evil. So they said to me, 'Make for us a god who will go ahead of us, for we do not know what has happened to this Moses, the man who led us up out of the land of Egypt.' So I said to them, 'Whoever has any gold must take it off and give it to me.' Then I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf." Moses saw that people were unrestrained, for Aaron had let them go unrestrained, so that they were a disgrace before their opposers. Then Moses took his position in the gate of the camp and said, "Who is on Jehovah's side? Come to me." And all the Levites gathered around him. He now said to them, "This is what Jehovah, the God of Israel, has said. Each of you must fasten on his sword and pass through all the camp from gate to gate, killing his brother, his neighbor, and his close companion." The Levites did what Moses said, so about 3,000 men were killed that day. Then Moses said, "Set yourselves apart for Jehovah today, for each of you has gone against his own son and his own brother. Today he will give you a blessing." On the very next day, Moses said to the people, "You committed a very great sin, and now I will go up to Jehovah to see if I can make amends for your sin." So Moses returned to Jehovah and said, "What a great sin this people has committed. They made themselves a god of gold. But now, if you are willing, pardon their sin. If not, please wipe me out from your book that you have written." However, Jehovah said to Moses, "Whoever has sinned against me, I will wipe him out of my book. Go now, lead the people to a place about which I have spoken to you. Look, my angel will go ahead of you, and on the day when I make an accounting, I will bring punishment on them for their sin." Then Jehovah began plaguing the people because they had made the calf, the one that Aaron had made. Exodus 33. Jehovah said further to Moses, "Go on your way from here with the people whom you led up out of the land of Egypt. Journey to the land about which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, 'To your offspring I will give it.' I will send an angel ahead of you and drive out the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Go up to a land flowing with milk and honey. But I will not go in the midst of you, for you are an obstinate people, and I might exterminate you on the way." When the people heard this harsh word, they began to mourn, and not one of them put on his ornaments. Jehovah said to Moses, "Say to the Israelites, 'You are an obstinate people. In one moment I could go through the midst of you and exterminate you. So now keep your ornaments off while I consider what to do to you.' So from Mount Horeb onward, the Israelites refrained from wearing their ornaments. Now Moses took his tent and pitched it outside the camp, at some distance from the camp, and he called it a tent of meeting. Everyone inquiring of Jehovah would go out to the tent of meeting, which was outside the camp. As soon as Moses went out to the tent, all the people would rise and stand at the entrance of their own tents, and they would gaze after Moses until he entered into the tent. As soon as Moses would go into the tent, the pillar of cloud would come down and stand at the entrance of the tent while God spoke with Moses. When all the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, each of them rose and bowed down at the entrance of his own tent. Jehovah spoke to Moses face to face, just as one man would speak to another man. When he returned to the camp, Joshua, the son of Nun, his minister and his attendant, would not depart from the tent. Now Moses said to Jehovah, "See, you are saying to me, 'Lead this people up,' but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. Moreover, you have said, 'I know you by name.' and you have also found favor in my eyes. Please, if I have found favor in your eyes, make me know your ways, so that I may know you and continue to find favor in your eyes. Consider too that this nation is your people. So he said, I myself will go with you, and I will give you rest. Then Moses said to him, if you yourself are not going along, do not lead us up from here. How will it be known that I have found favor in your eyes, I and your people? Is it not by your going along with us, so that I and your people will be distinguished from every other people on the face of the earth? Jehovah went on to say to Moses, I will also do this thing that you request, because you have found favor in my eyes, and I know you by name. Then he said, please show me your glory. But he said, I will make all my goodness pass before your face, and I will declare before you the name of Jehovah, and I will favor the one whom I favor, and I will show mercy to the one whom I show mercy. But he added, you cannot see my face, for no man can see me and live. Jehovah said further, here is a place near me. Station yourself on the rock. When my glory is passing by, I will place you in a crevice of the rock, and I will shield you with my hand until I have passed by. After that, I will take my hand away, and you will see my back, but my face may not be seen. Exodus 34. Then Jehovah said to Moses, carve out for yourself 2 tablets of stone like the first ones, and I will write on the tablets the words that appeared on the first tablets, which you shattered. Get ready for the morning, as you will go up in the morning to Mount Sinai and station yourself before me there on top of the mountain. But nobody may go up with you, and nobody else should be seen anywhere on the mountain. Not even flocks or herds should graze in front of that mountain. So Moses carved out 2 tablets of stone, just like the first ones, and got up early in the morning and went up Mount Sinai, just as Jehovah had commanded him, and he took the 2 tablets of stone in his hand. Then Jehovah came down in the cloud and stationed himself with him there and declared the name of Jehovah. Jehovah was passing before him and declaring, Jehovah, Jehovah, a God, merciful and compassionate, slow to anger, and abundant in loyal love and truth, showing loyal love to thousands, pardoning error and transgression and sin. But he will by no means leave the guilty unpunished, bringing punishment for the error of fathers upon sons and upon grandsons, upon the 3rd generation and upon the 4th generation. Moses hurried to bow low to the earth and prostrate himself. Then he said, If now I have found favor in your eyes, O Jehovah, then please, Jehovah, go along with us in our midst, although we are an obstinate people, and forgive our error and our sin, and take us as your own possession. In turn, he said, here I am making a covenant before all your people. I will do wonderful things that have never been done in all the earth or among all the nations, and all the people among whom you live will see the work of Jehovah, for it is an awe-inspiring thing that I am doing with you. Pay attention to what I am commanding you today. Here I am driving out from before you the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Be careful that you do not make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land to which you are going, or it may prove to be a snare among you. But you are to pull down their altars. You are to shatter their sacred pillars and their sacred poles. You are to cut down. You must not bow down to another god, for Jehovah is known for requiring exclusive devotion. Yes, he is a God who requires exclusive devotion. Be careful not to make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, because when they prostitute themselves to their gods and sacrifice to their gods, someone will invite you, and you will eat from his sacrifice. Then you will surely take some of their daughters for your sons, and their daughters will prostitute themselves to their gods and cause your sons to prostitute themselves to their gods. You must not make gods of cast metal. You are to observe the festival of unleavened bread. You will eat unleavened bread just as I have commanded you. Do this for 7 days at the appointed time in the month of Abib, because it was in the month of Abib that you came out of Egypt. Every firstborn male is mine, including all your livestock, whether the first male bull or sheep. The firstling of a donkey you are to redeem with a sheep. But if you do not redeem it, then you must break its neck. You are to redeem every firstborn of your sons. No one may appear before me empty-handed. 6 days you are to work, but on the 7th day you will rest. Even during plowing time and in harvest you will rest. And you will celebrate your festival of weeks with the first ripe fruits of the wheat harvest and the festival of ingathering at the turn of the year. 3 times a year all your men are to appear before the true Lord, Jehovah, the God of Israel. For I will drive the nations away from before you, and I will enlarge your territory, and nobody will desire your land while you are going up to see the face of Jehovah your God 3 times a year. You must not offer the blood of my sacrifice along with anything leavened. The sacrifice of the festival of the Passover should not be kept overnight until the morning. The best of the first ripe fruits of your soil are to bring to the house of Jehovah your God. You must not boil a young goat in its mother's milk. Jehovah went on to say to Moses, you are to write down these words, because in accordance with these words, I am making a covenant with you and with Israel. And he remained there with Jehovah for 40 days and 40 nights. He ate no bread and drank no water. And he wrote on the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 Commandments. Moses then came down from Mount Sinai, and the 2 tablets of the testimony were in his hand. When he came down from the mountain, Moses did not know that the skin of his face was emitting rays because he had been speaking with God. When Aaron and all the Israelites saw Moses, they noticed that the skin of his face emitted rays, and they were afraid to go near him. But Moses called to them, so Aaron and all the chieftains of the assembly came to him, and Moses spoke with him. After that, all the Israelites came near to him, and he gave them all the commands that Jehovah had given him on Mount Sinai. When Moses would finish speaking with them, he would put a veil over his face. But when Moses would go in before Jehovah to speak with him, he would take off the veil until he went out. And then he went Then he went out and revealed to the Israelites the commands he had received. And the Israelites saw that the skin of Moses' face emitted rays. Then Moses put the veil back over his face until he went in to speak with God. Exodus 35. Moses later gathered the entire assembly of the Israelites together and said to them, these are the things that Jehovah has commanded to be done. Work may be done for 6 days, but the 7th day will become something holy to you, a Sabbath of complete rest to Jehovah. Anybody doing work on it will be put to death. You must not light a fire in any of your dwelling places on the Sabbath day. Moses then said to the entire assembly of the Israelites, this is what Jehovah has commanded. Take up a contribution for Jehovah from among yourselves. Let everyone with a willing heart bring a contribution for Jehovah. Gold, silver, copper, blue thread, purple wool, scarlet material, fine linen, goat hair, ram skins dyed red, seal skins, acacia wood, oil for the lamps, balsam for the anointing oil, and for the perfumed incense, onyx stones, and other stones for setting the ephod and the breastpiece. Let all who are skilled among you come and make everything that Jehovah has commanded, namely, the tabernacle with its tent and its covering, its clasps and its panel frames, its bars, its pillars, and its socket pedestals, the ark and its poles, the cover and the curtain for the screen, the table and its poles, and all its utensils, and the showbread, the lampstand for light, and its utensils, and its lamps, and the oil for lighting, the altar of incense, and its poles, the anointing oil, and the perfumed incense, the screen for the tabernacle's entrance, the altar of burnt offering, and its copper grating, its poles, and all its utensils, the basin and its stand, the hanging curtains of the courtyard, its pillars and its socket pedestals, the screen of the entrance to the courtyard, the tent pins of the tabernacle, and the tent pins of the courtyard, and their cords, the finely woven garments for ministering in the sanctuary, the holy garments for Aaron the priest, and the garments of his sons for serving as priests. So all the assembly of the Israelites went out from before Moses. Then everyone whose heart impelled him and everyone whose spirit incited him came and brought their contribution for Jehovah to be used for the tent of meeting, for all its service, and for the holy garments. They kept coming, the men along with the women, each with a willing heart, bringing brooches, earrings, rings, and other jewelry, as well as all sorts of articles of gold. They all presented their offerings of gold to Jehovah. And all who had blue thread, purple wool, scarlet material, fine linen, goat hair, ram skins dyed red, and seal skins brought them. All those contributing silver and copper brought Jehovah's contribution, and all who had acacia wood for any part of the work brought it. All the skilled women spun with their hands, and they brought what they had spun, blue thread, purple wool, scarlet material, and fine linen. And all the skilled women whose hearts impelled them spun the goat hair. And the chieftains brought onyx stones and other stones to be set in ephod and the breastpiece, and the balsam and the oil for lighting, and for the anointing oil, and for the perfumed incense. All the men and women whose hearts incited them brought something for the work that Jehovah, through Moses, had commanded to be done. The Israelites brought it as a voluntary offering to Jehovah. Then Moses said to the Israelites, "See, Jehovah has chosen Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur of the tribe of Judah. He has filled him with the Spirit of God, giving him wisdom, understanding, and knowledge of every sort of craftsmanship, for making artistic designs, for working with gold, silver, and copper, for cutting and setting stones, and for making all kinds of artistic wood products. And he has put it into his heart to teach he and Aholiab, the son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan. He has filled them with skill to do all the work of a craftsman, an embroiderer, and a weaver, using blue thread, purple wool, scarlet material, and fine linen, and of a loom worker. These men will do every sort of work and prepare every sort of design." Exodus 36. Bezalel will work along with Aholiab and every skilled man to whom Jehovah has given wisdom and understanding so as to know how to do all the work of the holy service just as Jehovah has commanded. Moses then called Bezalel and Aholiab and every skilled man whose heart Jehovah has put wisdom, everyone whose heart impelled him to volunteer to do the work. Then they took from Moses all the contribution that the Israelites had brought for the work of the holy service. However, these continued to bring him voluntary offerings morning after morning. Then, after they started the holy work, all the skilled workers were coming, one after another. And they were telling Moses, "The people are bringing much more than what is required for the work that Jehovah has commanded to be done." So Moses commanded that an announcement be made throughout the camp, saying, "Men and women do not bring any more goods for the holy contribution." With that, the people were restrained from bringing in anything else. The goods were enough for all the skilled work to be done, and more than enough. So all the skilled workers made the tabernacle of 10 tent cloths of fine twisted linen, blue thread, purple wool, and scarlet material. He made them with cherubs embroidered on them. Each tent cloth was 28 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. All the tent cloths were the same size. Then he joined 5 of the tent cloths together, and the other 5 tent cloths he joined together. After that, he made loops of blue thread on the edge of the one tent cloth where it would join. He did the same on the edge of the outermost tent cloth at the corresponding place where it would join. He made 50 loops on the one tent cloth and 50 loops on the other edge of the tent cloth at the place where it would join, so that the loops would be opposite one another. Finally, he made 50 gold clasps and joined the tent cloths together with the clasps so that the tabernacle became one unit. Then he made 10 cloths of goat hair for the tent over the tabernacle. He made 11 tent cloths. Each tent cloth was 30 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. The 11 tent cloths were the same size. Then he joined 5 of the tent cloths together, and he joined the other 6 tent cloths together. Next, he made 50 loops along the edge of the outermost tent cloth where it joined, and he made 50 loops along the edge of the other tent cloth that joined with it. And he made 50 copper clasps for joining the tent together to become one unit. He made a covering for the tent out of ram skins dyed red and a covering out of seal skins to go over that. Then he made out of acacia wood the tabernacle's panel frames, which stood upright. Each panel frame was 10 cubits high and 1.5 cubits wide. Each panel frame had 2 tenons joined together to each other. That is how he made all the panel frames of the tabernacle. Thus he made the panel frames for the south side of the tabernacle, 20 panel frames facing south. Then he made 40 socket pedestals of silver to go under the 20 panel frames, 2 socket pedestals beneath one panel frame for its 2 tenons, and 2 socket pedestals under each following panel frame for its 2 tenons. For the other side of the tabernacle, the north side, he made 20 panel frames and their 40 socket pedestals of silver, 2 socket pedestals beneath the one panel frame, and 2 socket pedestals beneath each of the other panel frames. For the rear section of the tabernacle to the west, he made 6 panel frames. He made 2 panel frames as corner posts of the tabernacle at the 2 rear corners. The posts were doubled from the bottom to the top up to the first ring. That is what he did with the 2 corner posts. So they amounted to 8 panel frames along with their 16 socket pedestals of silver, 2 socket pedestals under each panel frame. Then he made bars of acacia wood, 5 bars for the panel frames of the one side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the panel frames of the other side of the tabernacle, and 5 for the panel frames of the tabernacle for the rear section to the west. He made the middle bar to extend along the middle of the panel frames from one end to the other. He overlaid the panel frames with gold, and he made their rings of gold as holders for the bars, and he overlaid the bars with gold. Then he made a curtain of blue thread, purple wool, scarlet material, and fine twisted linen. He made it with cherubs embroidered on it. Then he made it for 4 acacia pillars and overlaid them with gold, along with hooks of gold, and cast 4 socket pedestals of silver for them. Next, he made a screen for the entrance of the tent out of the blue thread, purple wool, scarlet material, and fine twisted linen, woven together, as well as its 5 pillars and their hooks. He overlaid their tops and their connectors with gold, but their 5 socket pedestals were of copper. Exodus 37. Bezalel then made the ark of acacia wood. It was 2.5 cubits long, and 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high. He overlaid it with pure gold inside and outside, and made a border of gold around it. After that, he cast 4 rings of gold for it, for above its 4 feet, with 2 rings on its one side and 2 rings on its other side. He next made poles of acacia wood and overlaid them with gold. Then he put the poles through the rings on the sides of the ark for carrying the ark. He made the cover of pure gold. It was 2.5 cubits long and 1.5 cubits wide. He then made 2 cherubs of hammered gold on both ends of the cover. One cherub was on one end, and the other cherub on the other end. He made the cherubs on both ends of the cover. Then the 2 cherubs spread out their wings upward, overshadowing the cover with their wings. They were facing each other, and their faces were turned toward the cover. He then made the table of acacia wood. It was 2 cubits long, 1 cubit wide, and 1.5 cubits high. He overlaid it with pure gold and made a border of gold around it. Next, he made a rim the width of a handbreadth to go around it, and a border of gold to go around the rim. Further, he cast 4 rings of gold for it and placed the rings on the 4 corners where the 4 legs were attached. The rings were near the rim, as holders for the poles used for carrying the table. Then he made the poles of acacia wood and overlaid them with gold for carrying the table. After that, he made out of pure gold the utensils that went on the table, its dishes, its cups, and its bowls and pitchers, from which drink offerings would be poured. Then he made the lampstand of pure gold. He made the lampstand of hammered work. Its base, its stem, its cups, its knobs, and its blossoms were one piece. 6 branches were extending out from its stem, 3 branches of the lampstand from its one side, and 3 branches from its other side. 3 cups shaped like almond flowers were on the one set of branches, with knobs and blossoms alternating, and 3 cups shaped like almond flowers were on the other set of branches, with knobs and blossoms alternating. This was done for the 6 branches extending out from the stem of the lampstand. And on the stem of the lampstand were 4 cups shaped like almond flowers with knobs and blossoms alternating. There was a knob under the first 2 branches that extended out of the stem, and a knob under the next 2 branches, and a knob under the next 2 branches, for the 6 branches extending out from the stem of the lampstand. The knobs and the branches and the whole lampstand were made to be one piece of pure hammered gold. Then he made it 7 lamps and its snuffers and its fire holders out of pure gold. He made it along with all its utensils from a talent of pure gold. He now made the altar of incense out of acacia wood. It was square, 1 cubit long, 1 cubit wide, and 2 cubits high. Its horns were one piece with it. He overlaid it with pure gold, its top surface and its sides all around, and its horns, and he made it a border of gold around it. He made 2 rings of gold for it below its border on 2 opposite sides to hold the poles used for carrying it. After that, he made the poles of acacia wood and overlaid them with gold. He also made the holy anointing oil and the pure perfumed incense, skillfully blended. Exodus 38. He made the altar of burnt offering out of acacia wood. It was square, 5 cubits long, 5 cubits wide, and 3 cubits high. Then he made its horns on its 4 corners. Its horns were one piece with it. Next he overlaid it with copper. After that, he made all the utensils of the altar, the buckets, the shovels, the bowls, the forks, and the fire holders. All its utensils he made of copper. He also made a grating for the altar, a network of copper under its rim. down toward its center. He cast 4 rings on the 4 corners near the grating of copper as holders for the poles. After that, he made the poles of acacia wood and overlaid them with copper. He inserted the poles into the rings on the sides of the altar for carrying it. He made the altar in the form of a hollow chest of planks. Then he made the basin of copper, and its copper stand he used the mirrors of the women who were organized to serve at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Then he made the courtyard. For the south side of the courtyard, facing south, he made the hanging curtains of fine twisted linen for 100 cubits. There were 20 pillars and 20 socket pedestals of copper, and the hooks of the pillars and their connectors were of silver. Also, for the north side, there were 100 cubits of hanging curtain. Their 20 pillars and their 20 socket pedestals were of copper. The hooks of the pillars and their connectors were of silver. But for the west side, the hanging curtains were for 50 cubits. There were 10 pillars and 10 socket pedestals, and the hooks of the pillars and their connectors were of silver. The width of the east side toward the sun rising was 50 cubits. There were 15 cubits of hanging curtain on one wing, with 3 pillars and 3 socket pedestals. And for the other wing, on the other side of the entrance of the courtyard, there were hanging curtains for 15 cubits, with 3 pillars and 3 socket pedestals. All the hanging curtains around the courtyard were of fine twisted linen. The socket pedestals for the pillars were of copper. The hooks of the pillars and their connectors were of silver. The tops were overlaid with silver, and there were silver fasteners for all the pillars of the courtyard. The screen of the entrance of the courtyard was woven of blue thread, purple wool, scarlet material, and fine twisted linen. It was 20 cubits long and 5 cubits high, the same height as the hanging curtains of the courtyard. Their 4 pillars and their 4 socket pedestals were made of copper. Their hooks and connectors were made of silver, and their tops were overlaid with silver. And the tent pins for the tabernacle around the courtyard were of copper. The following is the inventory of the tabernacle of the testimony, which was inventoried at the command of Moses as the responsibility of the Levites under the direction of Ithamar, the son of Aaron the priest. Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur of the tribe of Judah, did all that Jehovah had commanded Moses. With him was Oholiab, the son of Ahisamach of the tribe of Dan, a craftsman and an embroiderer and a weaver of the blue thread, the purple wool, the scarlet material, and the fine linen. All the gold that was used for all the work of the holy place equaled the amount of the gold of the wave offering, 29 talents and 730 shekels by the standard shekel of the holy place. And the silver of the ones registered of the assembly was 100 talents and 1,775 shekels by the standard shekel of the holy place. The half shekel for each individual was half a shekel by the standard shekel of the holy place. For every man who is among those registered from 20 years of age and up, amounting to 603,550. The casting of the socket pedestals of the holy place and the socket pedestals of the curtain amounted to 100 talents. 100 socket pedestals equaled 100 talents, 1 talent for each socket pedestal. From the 1,775 shekels, he made hooks for the pillars and overlaid their tops and joined them together. The copper of the offering was 70 talents and 2,400 shekels. With this he made the socket pedestals of the entrance of the tent of meeting, the copper altar and its copper grating, all the utensils of the altar, the socket pedestals around the courtyard, the socket pedestals of the entrance of the courtyard, and all the tent pins of the tabernacle and all the tent pins around the courtyard. Exodus 39. From the blue thread, the purple wool, the scarlet material, they made finely woven garments for ministering in the holy place. They made the holy garments that were for Aaron, just as Jehovah had commanded Moses. He made the ephod of gold, blue thread, purple wool, scarlet material, and fine twisted linen. They hammered plates of gold into thin sheets, and he cut it into threads to work in with the blue thread, the purple wool, the scarlet material, and the fine linen. And it was embroidered. They made shoulder pieces for it, and were joined at its top 2 edges. And the woven belt, which was attached to the ephod for tying it securely in position, was made of the same material of gold, blue thread, purple wool, scarlet material, and fine twisted linen, just as Jehovah had commanded Moses. Then they mounted the onyx stones in gold settings, and they engraved them with the names of the sons of Israel, as they would engrave a seal. He placed them on the shoulder pieces of the ephod as memorial stones for the sons of Israel, just as Jehovah had commanded Moses. Then he made the breastpiece with the workmanship of an embroiderer, like the workmanship of the ephod, out of gold, blue thread, purple wool, and scarlet material, and fine twisted linen. It was square when doubled. They made the breastpiece, which, when doubled, was as long and as wide as the span of the hand. Then they set 4 rows of stones in it. The first row was ruby, topaz, and emerald. The second row was turquoise, sapphire, and jasper. The third row was leshem stone, agate, and amethyst. And the fourth row was chrysolite, onyx, and jade. They were mounted in settings of gold. The stones corresponded to the names of the 12 sons of Israel, and the names were engraved like a seal, each name representing one of the 12 tribes. Then they made wreathed chains on the breastpiece like cords of pure gold, and they made 2 settings of gold and 2 rings of gold, and attached the 2 rings to the 2 corners of the breastpiece. After that, they put the 2 cords of gold through the 2 rings at the corners of the breastpiece. Then they put the 2 ends of the 2 cords through the 2 settings and attached them to the shoulder pieces on the front of the ephod. Next, they made 2 rings of gold and set them at the 2 ends on the inside edge of the breastpiece, facing the ephod. Then they made 2 more rings of gold and put them on the front of the ephod below the 2 shoulder pieces, close to where it was joined, above the woven belt of the ephod. Finally, they tied the breastpiece with a blue cord from its rings to the rings of the ephod in order to keep the breastpiece in its place on the ephod, above the woven belt, just as Jehovah had commanded Moses. Then he made the sleeveless coat of the ephod, woven by a loom worker, all of blue thread. The opening of the sleeveless coat was in the middle of it, like the opening of a coat of mail. Its opening had a border around it, so that it would not be torn. Next, they made on the hem of the sleeveless coat pomegranates of blue thread, purple wool, and scarlet material twisted together. And they made bells of pure gold and put the bells in between the pomegranates, all around the hem of the sleeveless coat, in between the pomegranates. They alternated a bell and a pomegranate, all around the hem of the sleeveless coat, which was used for ministering, just as Jehovah had commanded Moses. And they made the robes of fine linen, woven by a loom worker, for Aaron and his sons, and the turban of fine linen, the ornamental headgear of fine linen, the linen shorts of fine twisted linen, and the sash of fine twisted linen, blue thread, purple wool, and scarlet material woven together, just as Jehovah had commanded Moses. Finally, they made a shining plate, the holy sign of dedication, out of pure gold, and inscribed on it an inscription as one would engrave a seal: "Holiness belongs to Jehovah." They attached to it a cord made from blue thread in order to put it on the turban, just as Jehovah had commanded Moses. So all the work for the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, was completed, and the Israelites did everything that Jehovah had commanded Moses. They did just so. Then they brought the tabernacle to Moses, the tent and all its equipment, its clasps, its panel frames, its bars, and its pillars and its socket pedestals, its covering of ram skins dyed red, its covering of sealskins, the curtain for the screen, the ark of the testimony and its poles, and the cover, the table and all its utensils, and the showbread, the lampstand of pure gold, its lamps, the row of lamps, and all its utensils, and the oil for lighting, the altar of gold, the anointing oil, the perfumed incense, the screen for the entrance of the tent, the altar of copper and its grating of copper, its poles, all its utensils, the basin and its stand, the hanging curtains of the courtyard, its pillars and its socket pedestals, the screen for the entrance of the courtyard, its tent cords and its tent pins, and all the utensils for the service of the tabernacle, for the tent of meeting, the finely woven garments for ministering in the sanctuary, the holy garments for Aaron the priest, and the garments of his sons for serving as priests, according to all that Jehovah had commanded Moses. That was how the Israelites did all the work. When Moses inspected all their work, he saw that they had done it just as Jehovah had commanded, and Moses blessed them. Exodus 40. Then Jehovah said to Moses, "On the first day of the month, you are to set up the tabernacle, the tent of meeting. Place the ark of the testimony in it, and screen off the ark with the curtain. You are to bring the table in and arrange the things that belong on it, and bring in the lampstand and light its lamps. Then put the golden altar for incense before the ark of the testimony, and put the screen for the entrance of the tabernacle in place. You are to put the altar of burnt offering before the entrance of the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, and place the basin between the tent of meeting and the altar and put water in it. Then set up the courtyard around it and put up the screen for the entrance of the courtyard. Next, you are to take the anointing oil and anoint the tabernacle and all that is in it, and sanctify it and all its utensils, so that it will become something holy. You are to anoint the altar of burnt offering and all its utensils, and sanctify the altar, so that it will become a most holy altar. And anoint the basin and its stand, and sanctify it. Then bring Aaron and his sons to the entrance of the tent of meeting, and wash them with water. And you are to clothe Aaron with the holy garments, and anoint him, and sanctify him, and he will serve as priest to me. After that, bring his sons near, and clothe them with robes. You are to anoint them just as you anointed their father, so that they will serve as priests to me, and their anointing will serve continually for them as a lasting priesthood during their generations. Moses did according to all that Jehovah had commanded him. He did just so. In the first month, in the second year, on the first day of the month, the tabernacle was set up. When Moses set up the tabernacle, he put its socket pedestals down, set up the panel frames, put its bars in, and set up its pillars. He spread out the tent over the tabernacle and placed the covering of the tent over it, just as Jehovah had commanded Moses. After that, he took the testimony and put it into the ark, and placed the poles on the ark and put the cover on the ark. He brought the ark into the tabernacle and put the curtain of the screen in place, and screened off the ark of the testimony, just as Jehovah had commanded Moses. Next, he put the table in the tent of meeting on the north side of the tabernacle outside the curtain, and he arranged the row of bread on it before Jehovah, just as Jehovah had commanded Moses. He placed the lampstand in the tent of meeting in front of the table on the south side of the tabernacle. He lit the lamps before Jehovah, just as Jehovah had commanded Moses. He next placed the golden altar in the tent of meeting before the curtain, and in order to make perfumed incense smoke on it, just as Jehovah had commanded Moses. Then he put the screen for the entrance of the tabernacle in place. He placed the altar of burnt offering at the entrance of the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, so that he might offer up the burnt offering and the grain offering on it, just as Jehovah had commanded Moses. He then placed the basin between the tent of meeting and the altar and put water in it for washing. Moses and Aaron and his sons washed their hands and their feet at it. Whenever they went into the tent of meeting or approached the altar, they would wash, just as Jehovah had commanded Moses. Finally, he set up the courtyard around the tabernacle and the altar, and put up the screen for the entrance of the courtyard. So Moses finished the work, and the cloud began to cover the tent of meeting, and Jehovah's glory filled the tabernacle. Moses was not able to go into the tent of meeting because the cloud remained over it, and Jehovah's glory filled the tabernacle. And when the cloud lifted from the tabernacle, the Israelites would break camp during all stages of their journey. However, if the cloud did not lift up, then they would not break camp until the day it lifted. For Jehovah's cloud was over the tabernacle by day, and a fire remained over it by night, in the sight of all the house of Israel during all stages of their journey. End of AV10.